So you completed 4 years of undergraduate studies, followed by 4 labor-intensive years in medical school. You now have an MD after your name. That means you're done with school, right? Not exactly. The schooling needed to become a doctor is a long and convoluted process, but I'll break it down in this video. So it all starts in college where you do your pre-med prerequisites. So these include 1 year of biology, 1 year of general chemistry, followed by 1 year of organic chemistry. Some medical schools require a class in statistics. They all require classes in English, which you kind of have to take anyway in college. And while there's no real math requirement, math is required to take some of the other science classes like chemistry. And finally, you need a year of physics. And the thing to keep in mind about these classes is that they are definitely not easy. They are very time consuming, require a lot of intense studying. In fact, many people consider them the weeding out classes to try to get rid of people who aren't really serious about pursuing a career in medicine. But that being said, still, they're not considered a major in and of themselves. So there's really no such thing as a pre-med major. You never say, I'm majoring in pre-med in college, because these are just prerequisites to go to medical school, but you can actually do so from any major. You could be a theater major, but as long as you take those courses, you can still apply to medical school. But if you add them up, 1 year of biology, 2 years of chemistry, a year of physics, math, statistics, that's enough to be pretty much 2/3 the way done with a bachelor's of science. So that's why a lot of people who go to medical school will end up just getting a degree in biology or chemistry because they figure, I'm already basically half the way there after completing the pre-med requirements. In my case, I actually majored in communication, so it had really nothing to do with any of these classes, but by the time I finished them, I thought I'm so close to just getting a second degree in biology that I might as well do it. So I ended up with a double major in communication and also molecular biology. Now, once you complete this coursework, you're still not all the way ready to apply to medical school. You still have to take the MCAT. That's the Medical College Admissions Test. I think that's what it stands for. Don't quote me on that. But it is the test that you take in order to be considered a candidate for medical school. So then after all that, 4 years of undergraduate study, then you move on to actual medical school itself, which I think of really as 2 distinct experiences. At first, you got the first 2 years. These are usually more lecture-based, where you're not doing a lot of hands-on training. It's a lot of lectures and labs. So you'll go to anatomy lecture, where the professor will talk about concepts in anatomy, like which arteries go where. And then you go to the lab, which when I did it, it was a lab with actual cadavers. So we had real human bodies that we would dissect. But I think nowadays a lot of that stuff is virtual. But that's what the first 2 years are comprised of. And then the same thing goes with the other classes as well. You take histology, which looks at the inside of cells. You're looking in a microscope in the lab. And so it's a lot of more basic science classwork. Then moving on to year 3 and 4, this is a totally different experience. This is more like on-the-job training. So here you will do clinical clerkships, where you rotate through all the different specialties in medicine and surgery. So you will do a rotation in OB-GYN, a rotation in psychiatry, neurology, internal medicine, family practice, general surgery. A lot of the really core specialties, but for the really esoteric stuff, the more focused subspecialties, you don't really get much experience with unless you volunteer to do additional electives in these subjects. One example would be radiation oncology. Usually that one wouldn't be considered a core clerkship during this time. I just realized I left out one very big thing, and that is the USMLE Step 1. So this is the first part of the board exam. Usually you have to take this after your second year of medical school. Now, when I was in school, this was a really crazy test. We felt like our whole lives were dependent on this test score, because a lot of the different residency programs would really value your USMLE Step 1 score. In fact, they would even use a low score as a way to weed out potential applicants. Like if you try to apply to something competitive, like let's say dermatology, and your Step 1 score was not very good, your application would end up in the circular filing cabinet before anybody even took a look at it. But now it might be a different story because the test is no longer scored, it's pass fail. And so I don't think it quite has the same weight that it once did. Anyway, moving on, once you're in your 4th year of medical school, you have to start your application process for residency. And when I did it, all the applications involved actually going to the residency program, doing an interview there in person. But ever since COVID started, we've been usually doing these interviews virtually. So I don't think there's as much travel involved, which is kind of nice because you end up spending thousands of dollars traveling around the country, especially if you're trying to do something competitive to do these in-person interviews. All right, so at this point, we've completed 4 years of undergraduate studies. Now 4 years of medical school are done. We've done the MCAT, we've done the USMLE Step 1 board exam. Oh yeah, and there's also a Step 2 that you do usually during your 4th year of medical school. But we're ready to roll now. We now have an MD after our names, but alas, as I alluded to in the intro to this video, we're not quite done yet. Now it's on to intern year. So a lot of the medical specialties will require at least 1 year of either internship or a transitional year. This could be in surgery or it could be in internal medicine. And so this is very much no longer just shadowing or kind of like on the job training, so to speak. It's more of a trial by fire type of situation, like a bird getting kicked out of the nest and you just have to start flying because you pretty much start practicing as a doctor. But under supervision, you always have a more senior level resident ahead of you that you can ask questions for or will oversee your work, and an attending physician supervising everything. Then after this 1 year internship, you would take your USMLE Step 3. That's right, there's still one more part of that exam. Then you can be licensed to practice medicine. But after just 1 year of internship, it's pretty hard to get a job and actually practice. You can, I've heard of some cases of people doing urgent care work after that, after just 1 year of internship. But in the vast majority of cases, people go on to complete a residency. In my case, I did my residency in internal medicine, so that was 2 more years of internal medicine training. But depending on the specialty, residency might be much longer. For example, take something like dermatology, that's 4 years. General surgery is 5 years. So the residency lengths very much differ based on the specialty. Then you complete residency and you might still not be done because if you want a subspecialty, you have to do additional years of training in fellowship. For example, let's say you want to be an interventional cardiologist. You want to treat people who are having heart attacks and you want to place stents to open up their arteries. That's not easy. It's going to require 3 years of internal medicine residency, followed by 3 years of cardiology fellowship, and then an additional year or 2 of interventional cardiology training. So if you do the math, that adds up to 16 years of schooling after high school, which is a long time. But I think if you ask any interventional cardiologist, they're going to say it's worth it, especially if you have a passion for that field. I don't think you're going to meet too many interventional cardiologists who are going to say, boy, that time I spent in med school, that was a waste of time. You know, that's just not something you hear. I think in the long run, it's a big investment of both time and also money, right? If you look at, medical school, a lot of people graduate with $250,000 in debt, and that's not even taking into account opportunity cost, right? The time that you could have used in other endeavors. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you found this informative or helpful in some way, please feel free to hit the subscribe button there or check out another video here, and I'll catch you guys next time.